My name's Len Stickler, and my wife is Marsha Stickler. Marsha's been diagnosed with FTD. It's frontotemporal dementia, and we didn't even know what that was or anything about it. She's got diagnosed at 53. She's now 59, and she's in the final stages. And we'll talk a little bit more about the stages of this disease, but when they get it young, it progresses very fast. And so we're now into that final stage.
What were the first symptoms? How did this all start for you guys?
Well, it's kind of interesting. It actually, in most cases, with these patients, you don't know what's going on, and then after you get the diagnosis, you actually go back, and the family starts to go back and say, oh, that's what it was. Now I understand why she or he did this. You know, she was diagnosed at 53, but we started seeing things back probably, I would say, some of her friends even said that they would see it 4 or 5 years, believe it or not, before that. Just little things that started. And then as it gets a little closer, all of a sudden, you know, you're supposed to get ready for an event, and Marsha was really a good cook. And so Marsha was getting ready to cook, and my dad was going to buy a prime rib. She was great at prime rib. And so he buys a prime rib and tells her that, you know, here we're going to have it this date. So it's another thing that we start at dates. They have no concept of time or dates. And so Marsha's, yeah, great, you know, I'll be glad to do it. It'd be awesome. And all of a sudden the date comes. I happened to be out of town, was flying in, and all of a sudden my dad calls me and says, what's up? Where's Marsha? She's supposed to be here. I was flying in to go right over to his house, and I'm going, oh my gosh, what happened? Marsha totally, I mean, even though you had communication with her the day before, didn't matter. She forgot, and she didn't show up. So I had to get her and go, you know, run over and, you know, try to salvage this thing. And so there were just numbers of little instances like that. Our little grandson, you know, about 3 years before she was diagnosed, 2 or 3, you know, all of a sudden, Marsha, would you watch little Braden? He's like 2 years old, about that, he's toddling. And we had stairs, and there was a gate there. But I said, make sure you watch him now, honey. You know, he was playing with pots and pans in the kitchen while she was doing something. And so I'm in the office doing some work, and all of a sudden, I thought I heard her in the other room ironing or sewing, doing something. And I said, oh, so I get up, and here's little Braden going down near the gate. He's right there shaking this gate. I mean, and what happens, what's really sad, and I want to share this with you folks out there, and it takes a lot of time and patience and a lot to get this and understand it. I got angry. I got angry at her. I didn't understand. I didn't know she was sick. I mean, I'm yelling at her. What are you, crazy? What's going on, the baby? And she's just looking at me. She doesn't have a clue. And so those are the things that I want to share, and I've got some stories as this thing goes along that even actually looking back on them, they're really kind of funny. But at the time, they were not funny because I didn't know she was sick. So that's kind of a little bit of prelude of how it happened before the actual diagnosis. Memory lapse was one thing, but with FTD, I think it was more the frontal lobes. I think more was the language. Now Marsha wasn't as fast to go as some of the guys in my support group. I happened to be in a support group in Dallas, Texas, and it was kind of weird because I'm thinking, how in the world did I get in a support group with all 12 men that wives have frontotemporal dementia? Because it's not that popular, it's just not that well known. And what I found out was that these men were part of a study. They were with a gentleman named Dr. Womack out of the University of Texas. And he had a grant, and that's all he studied for the last 8 or 10 years. That's all he did, was frontotemporal dementia. And so I was very fortunate to really be in with that group, because I had a lot of my brothers really went ahead of me And I got to get a lot of knowledge, you know, and he would come in and share with us, you know, things like Namenda, Aricept. He said, guys, forget it. Don't even give them to their patient. It may hurt them more than it helps them with frontotemporal dementia. Well, I had her on Namenda, and it was extremely expensive. It was killing me. And he said, get her off. Matter of fact, I won't even go into the fact that there's really no proof or whatever, but none of the studies really were what they were. But at any rate, he said, guys, it's not going to help. He showed us autopsies. He showed us the brain and how what's happening with frontotemporal dementia. And he showed us how the lights start to go out. And the brain is going from 3 pounds to 2 pounds to 1 pound. And the gray matter comes all around. And it's amazing to see a healthy brain. It's all lit up with blue, orange, and lights. And really, it's literally like the lights are going out as it progresses. And that brain ends up being, at the end, very small. And as it goes and shrinks, of course, it takes bodily functions with it. So your original question, Clara, I forgot, I went off on a little tangent there, but the original question was
sort of the first signs, and you described how time lapses.
Yeah, time lapses. It wasn't as much memory, really, as it was time lapses. Numbers, being able to, Marsha was very good with numbers. She was a loan mortgage processor, actually did some loan origination, very good with numbers and files, very organized. And all of a sudden, she's writing a check out one day, and I was over looking at her, and I noticed she could not get the number. She couldn't get the date. Dates just drove her crazy. But she couldn't get it in there. And so I took her to the calendar, and I said, honey, here it is. And she still could not, she just couldn't comprehend it. The date and time and space, they just start losing it. The other thing is the language. All of a sudden we'd be talking and there'd be some weird, the conversation just went, you know, you go, that's not what we were talking about. Where did that come from? There's no connection here whatsoever, what we were just discussing. That started happening a lot. And even my son, and be talking to the pastor, you know, at church, and all of a sudden, you know, Brandon's a pastor at First Assembly Ministries here, and he was talking to one of the other pastors with Mom, and all of a sudden, I mean, she says, well, I don't understand any, I want to hear, no, I'm hungry now, let's go. They were just having a deep discussion about the sermon, and it's like, you know, and that's the other thing that she would do, they would blurt out things that all of a sudden you'd go, what in the world? I won't go into this detail, but we're sitting there. I had a couple of these situations where, one, we're sitting there with our family and grandkids, right? We got two beautiful little grandkids. Little Braden's 7 now. Hannah's 4. They were probably, I don't know, 3 and 1 or whatever, something like that. But at any rate, Marsha said, we're watching TV, and they will do this. They will, vulgar things will come out. Marsha's never cussed in her. I mean, she just was not that kind of person. And all of a sudden, this lady comes on TV, and she goes, well, she sure has big, and she blurts it out. And my daughter-in-law's like, what? And the grandkids are sitting there, and I mean, again, at the time it really wasn't funny, but after you think through it, you go, oh my gosh, that was kind of funny. But anyway, things like that, just things that would just be blurted out. We were at a party, another with the grandkids and the family, and kids are wild, and kids, noises set them off. Any kind of noise or kids set them off, and we were at a party, and for Braden's party, well, the boys are rough. They're running around with swords, and they're yelling and screaming. And all of a sudden, Marsha blurts out, you kids better not get the And my daughter, and see, there's other families there with their kids. And you got to remember, my son's a pastor, so these are all church people. And then little Braden comes up and says, Mommy, Grandmom said the word. And so, like I said, at the time, it really wasn't funny, but after you look back on it, you know, she was sick. And that's what's so sad, is that in the very beginning, you don't know. You don't know how sick they really are.